When you think about what it takes to create or even retain jobs in New York now, is it the case that economic development is really based around subsidies or tax incentives? Is that just a key ingredient that we have to live with, or is there anything that can be done in the long term to move away from that dynamic?
I think in the competitive environment that we're in, within both nationally with other states and internationally with other countries, it is a part of economic development for sure. That's just the reality. I think any of us, in a perfect world, if nobody was doing this, then we shouldn't do it.
Mutual disarmament.
Yeah, but I remember there was a guy, I don't know if you remember Richard Brodsky, an assemblyman.
I do.
So Richard was not a fan of economic development incentives, and I think referred to as a corporate welfare. But he said this, he said, but I can't ask, I'm not a fan of what you do, but I can't ask you to unilaterally disarm, right? And so in the world that we live in terms of competing with other states, competing with other countries, it is a necessary prerequisite to economic development, for sure. Now, it's not it. That's what, as we've been talking about. You talk about workforce, you talk about infrastructure, you talk about just sustainability. All of those things are key to the full ecosystem, but incentives certainly are.
Well, Rob, when we think about the atmosphere of incentives, a lot of it is targeting new job creation, and sometimes you're left with those existing employers who say, what about me? And sometimes, like journalists, they get their payout coming one day. But other people are still excluded from the subsidies, whether it is direct cash benefits or tax incentives. What do you hear from local employers who are shut out about that? Is this a recurring concern for them? Do they wish that the overall tax environment could be better? Are there other infrastructure needs they have? What do you hear?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think everybody would, I think everybody in the business community would be interested in trying to continue to drive down the tax environment, whether it's your local property tax burden or the burden at the state level. I think the reality is, though, in New York State, we've made some great strides. And I think the fact that we have zero tax for manufacturers in New York State is a really big deal. Why is that a big deal today? It's a big deal today because so much of the economic growth that not only the state but this country has the potential to benefit from in the next 10 or 15 years are the reshoring of manufacturing jobs that were once lost from all of our communities across upstate New York. So as we're out there talking with partners around doing business in New York State, things like that do matter. But I want to go back to what Kevin said. Fundamentally, economic development is not just about incentives. Economic development is about understanding your community assets, whether it's your human assets, your intellectual assets, your academic assets, your natural resources, and leveraging those into a value proposition for business, right? How can you help a business, whether it's a high-tech company, a manufacturer, a service sector business, how can you help them achieve their business goals, which are often profitability and growing their market share? There are a lot of different ways that we can do that, but certainly incentives are a key part of the toolkit.